I am a woman.
I am a woman.
I am a woman.
I am a woman.
I want to be successful.
I want financial support.
I want affordable health service.
I want to be powerful.
Powerful. Supported.
Inspired. Connected.
Educated.
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 I want specialized banking.
I want maternal care.
I want to be empowered.
I am a woman. I am a king woman.
I am a king woman.
I am a king woman.
I am a W woman.
If anyone was going to ask me one moment I remember from Tara Fela Durotoye's interview, I would say this. At one point, it felt like a draft entered the room. And I remember the hair on my arm literally was standing at attention. But I didn't say anything because I thought it was just me, and if I mentioned it, people would think I was crazy. And I remember I yelled, "Cut," for us to change battery or just, I don't know, maybe just to move on. And she had this makeup artist that she had in the room. She brought the makeup artist. It wasn't one of my team. And as soon as I yelled "cut," she says, "Can I speak now?" And I said, "Yes, you can speak. We're not rolling." And she goes, "God, thank you so much for putting me in this room." And that is a summary of what the experience of interviewing Tara Fela Durotoye was. It was an out-of-body experience. And it was such a pleasure and an honor to just learn her life lessons and be in her presence.
Growing up in retrospect, when I was a child, I couldn't wait to leave home. I couldn't wait to get married. I got married very early. I got married at 24 because I came from a polygamous family. Now, as an adult, I'm able to look back at my childhood and see some of the interesting things and enjoy the memories. But at the time, I was looking for exit. My father had 2 wives when I was growing up. My mom wasn't one of them. So I grew up with 2 stepmothers. I was an only child of my both parents, so every sibling that I had was a half. For a little girl, I hoped and aspired that my own daughter or my own children would never have that experience of just not knowing. As an adult, I almost can tell why it had to happen the way it did, and I'm grateful that I went through that experience. I had 2 stepmothers, and it was interesting that I had both. I had one fantastic stepmother and one that wasn't that fantastic. I had one who didn't have her own children, but I became like her adopted daughter. But I also had one who was in the house when my mom was there. And so they had a banter. They had that hatred between themselves, and I was now the object of her to express her hatred for my mom. And so I was treated very maliciously on account of the fact that she was the one who my mom more or less was always having these fights with. She had her own 2 children. My other stepmother, on the other hand, didn't have any children, but she was kind. She was very kind to me. I grew up always wondering what my mom would have done in every situation. So when I was about to go into secondary school, my father said, because my older brother didn't pass the exams, and although I passed the exams, I couldn't go because he was older than me. And so I was now then deprived of entering secondary school, just simply because. I felt that because my mom wasn't there, because if my mom was there, they should have fought the battle to ensure that I went, in spite of the fact that my brother didn't do well. My stepmom stood up. This kind stepmother stood up and had a big fight with my father and said, "No, this can't happen. It doesn't matter whether your son passed or not, and even if he's older, she has to go." I remember trying to get into university as well at the time where you wanted to go into a particular school and that school didn't give you admission, and then they posted you to another university that you didn't really want, and you have to walk your way. And my stepmom was very gentle, and I always wondered if my mom was here. So there was always that wondering if my mom was here. I've grown up to realize that my mom is different and my stepmom was very different, and both of them could have brought, but at the time I missed her a lot. I was one of those children on visiting days where if my stepmom didn't come, maybe because she was my mom and she didn't come, then I would think, oh, well, my mom didn't come. But because she was my stepmom, I thought, oh, did she not come because? Was she not here because? And I had to build my own internal strength. I had to build my own internal confidence. My stepmom was great, but I was always curious. I saw my mom as someone who neglected me. I felt that she left me. She didn't stand up for me enough. So she wasn't there when I got my first kiss. She wasn't there when I had my first crush. She wasn't there when I started to see my period. She wasn't there when I had all these experiences, you know, whether it was the time where I fought with my friends or where I felt that people were speaking ill about me in school. You know, she wasn't there for all those things and milestones, whether it was my coronation in church, because when we were in a Baptist church where we did these ceremonies for young girls who gave their lives to the Lord, she wasn't there. So I always wondered. And I think that I grew a lot of silent hatred for my biological mother. So as much as my stepmom did a great job, I think she did a great job. So large extent, all the things that I am today, I credit to her. Many of the things I learned. So in terms of similarities, in terms of personality traits, I'm like my mom in a lot of ways, my biological mom. But in terms of some of the gifts and talents that I honed as I went along the way, I picked up from my stepmother. So my stepmom was a very submissive wife. My father adored her, and I was very curious about that kind of adoration that a man would have for a wife. So I was curious about her. On the other hand, my mom didn't have that kind of experience. She was never able to live with any man, so she had multiple husbands. I looked at my stepmom as well and saw someone who was very domesticated and very artistic. So my arts part of me, you know, I like to go to galleries. I picked up from my stepmother. The gardening part of me, I like to garden. My father used to call my stepmom the upstairs farmer. So yes, she had a good garden, but then she always had plants, tomatoes, all kinds of things, somewhere in some windowsill somewhere. And so I got all those things from her, but then my mom's internal strength, her stubbornness, her enterprise, her charisma. So my mom can walk into a room and you would know that she came. She's not the sort that would be here and you wouldn't know. And those were part of my own personality, but a mixture. But that childhood was something that I love to hate. I have that feeling of love to hate. And I think that's one of the determinations that I had where I was getting married and I proposed in my heart that my marriage had to work. It had to work because I didn't want my children to go through the same experience that I went through. When I felt I was being oppressed at home for whatever the reason was, or I wasn't being fairly treated, there were many times where I hoped that my mother was there to stand up for me. My mom wasn't present in the house. Now, I'm going to almost give you two sides of the story. I'll give you a side of the story that I knew, because I never lived with my mom in the same house until I became 21 or above 21. So what I took away was, this was a woman who decided that she was leaving this husband of hers, and she was an entrepreneur. So she had now gone out, and she now had this successful businesses. And so I knew her to be this woman who was very successful. But then she left me, a child, with someone else. I remember going into boarding school, and on arrival at boarding school the first night, there was another girl who seemed happy to be in boarding school. She was my bunkmate, and the other kids were crying. They were so miserable, you know, and I seemed happy. She seemed happy, but I was curious to know why she was so happy. And then she said to me, "Oh, she has a stepmother, and she couldn't wait to have left home." And I was like, "Oh, exactly the same feeling that I had." And for me, boarding school was exit. It was such joy to just leave. But all that time I shaped my thoughts. So all the time I was in secondary school, my mom visited me only once. And this was a school where a lot of the kids were visited by their parents. They were not children who were neglected. So they were visited regularly. There were some children who if their parents were separated, mom will come earlier, dad will come later on. So they always had somebody. Some even had their grandmothers also come. But here I was here, and then my mom didn't come. My stepmom came sometimes, but she didn't come all the time. And my mom never came. She came once, and the time she came, it wasn't even a visiting day. So it was just one of those days. She was driving past the school, and she realized, oh, my daughter is in this school. Oh, I should stop by. So she did stop by. I saw her surprise. I couldn't believe that she came, and she wasn't there for that long. So I had this thought of someone who was successful. So it wasn't, I didn't see a woman who was, you know how sometimes if you saw your mom and you saw her once in a while, when you saw her, she was poor, you may say to yourself, oh, maybe she realized she didn't have the capacity to take the child with her because she doesn't have the ability to be able to finance or provide for the child and whatever. But my mom was successful, and I saw her grow her business. So for me, it was, she left me. And I can never do that to my child. I could never allow someone else to raise my child for whatever the circumstance is. But as I grew older, I then met her over the years, last few years, and she had a conversation with my husband because she knows that there is that barrier in our relationship. I remember when CNN interviewed me and they asked me to talk about my childhood, and the entire conversation was around my stepmom, and then my stepmom's picture was also shown, and my mom had to watch it. And after the night that it was shown, my mom had a conversation with my husband, and for her, it was like someone who had a child but then couldn't take the joy of her success. But I didn't think she deserved it. And so I didn't mind that she wasn't shown. But she had this conversation with my husband where she said her father insisted. He was like a man that didn't have children in his last life. So if you had a child for him, he would take his child. He wouldn't allow you to take the child. And I remember they had a physical fight, but I don't remember what the physical fight was about. Now, when she gave me the story, I realized that that was what that physical fight was about, where it was that you cannot take my child. And that was my dad. But I didn't know that. I grew up thinking she left me, she left me, she left me. Now I know that she didn't just leave me, that my father insisted. And my father was obviously more powerful, definitely with men generally in the past. Maybe now women are equally as powerful in some cases. But at the time, my mom couldn't. She couldn't dare. He was a powerful man in government, and she couldn't struggle a child with him, and she left me. But I grew up with that feeling. And so the nights where I was by myself in my bed and I had to think about her, I thought about a woman who left her child. I think over the summer, we had a big fight. And I had never fought her before. It was the first time where I actually spoke openly about how I felt. And she was insisting on me doing something for her. And I got angry because I felt she didn't deserve what it was that she was asking for. And so I, for the first time, expressed my anger. And my husband was there. And for the first time, he couldn't control me. I didn't think he even had the right to say to me, don't speak to her that way, or don't do that to her. I didn't think anyone had the right to say to me. And it was my first time I had that outburst. And one of the things I said to her is, I have 3 children today. There is nothing that Fela can do, no power that he has that I would allow him to keep my children and allow my children to be raised by any other woman. It's just not possible under the sun. Yes, you know, the claim is that my dad is a very loving man. He dotes over his children and whatever. So he would do anything for his kids, blah, blah, blah. But for me, I was very angry. I thought, you don't deserve it. You are a woman who left your child for another woman to raise. You were not there when I needed you the most. Now I don't need it for you to be able to give me what you want to give me today. I don't need it. It's too late. And while I was just speaking to her, and I was raising my voice, and I was screaming, and my husband walked past, and he looked at me and wanted to say, don't do that. And I yelled back at him, and we don't have that kind of relationship. And I yelled back at him to say, you have no right to tell me that I shouldn't be upset. No one has the right. One of my sisters came, and she couldn't say, don't feel that way. The only thing she was saying was holding my hand, because for the first time, I was able to express exactly how I felt. My children were not in the house, so I said all the things I wanted to say to her. She didn't apologize, but that was not what I was looking for. I was looking for a way to let her know. But I think I hoped that I would be able to tell her in a time where I wasn't that angry, and therefore would not say hurtful things. But I did say hurtful things to her, and she cried. But I think the crying for me was an apology, and I took it and I embraced it. And after that, I decided that I was going to do certain things just to show that I had forgiven. The things that children do for their mothers. So every month, there's a standing instruction from my bankers to transfer X amount of money to my mother. I think that I never really expressed how I felt. So she could sense it from either the fact that I didn't call enough times, or that I didn't take all her calls, or that when my stepmom died, for example, I mourned her for about 3 months. In the 3 months, I wore dark clothes. And at her funeral, I wailed and wailed and wailed. And I wailed so much that my mom said to me in pidgin English, "The cry no go finish. Not if you cry all of them today. Cry and small, small." What she meant to say was, you will always mourn her, but the way you're crying now, today, is as though you want to cry all the crying now. You're just going to break yourself, right? But I cried so deeply because I felt such great loss. I thought it was at the prime of my life where I could have been able to reciprocate. I had the ability, I had the means, but then she was not going to be there to enjoy the means. So my mom was, she felt that the love that I had for my stepmom, she didn't think I had it for her. So, but there was no communication around that, but she just felt it. But this day, she'd been in my house for maybe about a year or so, and from time to time, I would come back and I would walk past her room, and she would hear my footsteps and know that I won't knock at her door. And I would walk into my room, and she would ask the maid, "Has she come back?" And they would say yes. And she would know that she was on the phone, so I couldn't have said she was sleeping. She's also a light sleeper, so if I really wanted to talk to her, I would have opened the door. So it almost seemed like I avoided her. So she lived in my house, but I avoided her. I couldn't even call her mommy. So I called her grandma, because I didn't think that that's the name. I thought the name was for someone else. That wasn't the name for her. My father was a very loving dad. I have fond memories of him. He's very eloquent, very intelligent, and I make excuses for his polygamous lifestyle to say that women just loved him because he was so charming and he was so loving. But I think he was a great guy. I think he was searching for something. He was looking for love. He was looking for someone, and I think he didn't find that person until later on in his life, which was this stepmother of mine, who he absolutely adored. And I think I experienced a man who could love a woman the way he did. And I think it helped me to want to see that and experience the same thing where a man adores his wife. My father adored his wife, absolutely. But that was towards the end of his life. So he didn't enjoy the same relationship and intimacy that he had with my stepmother, who also was responsible for raising me. But he was a great guy. He did a lot of work for the government, very passionate about Nigeria as well. So you can almost see similarity between him and my husband, right? And he wanted Nigeria to be a great country. He worked for the government as a civil servant, and he rose in the ranks to become the head of the civil service. But superb civil servant, superb. And it's hard to find such people now. It's just such a shame that there are not many of them. But that was a man who would travel and come back and return his Esther code. And say this was left and return it back to the government. So he was a man who, it's funny how you can see someone who has these multiple relationships. So then he's working for the government and he won't touch government money. I was very proud of him. He was someone that made me proud. I've seen him on NT, on TV. It's funny, I never held him responsible for anything. My mom was the wolf, big bad wolf, but not my dad. He tried to compensate by, for example, picking me up on my last day at secondary school on the final day. Even though he was old, I was one of the children from his old age. But he came, and he engaged me as well. And I used to have nightmares a lot as a child. And every time I had a nightmare, I knew it was okay. I felt comfortable to knock at my dad's room door and go to his bed and just lie there. And I felt okay, and I knew I'll be fine. And I used to have nightmares, especially about him dying. And I think maybe it was out of the fear of losing the both of them. So my mom was alive, and she was living a very vibrant life, but for some reason, I felt I had lost her, and then maybe the fear that I was going to lose my father as well. So he would ask me about my dreams, and I would tell him, and he would say it's okay. I would stay in his bed. But I think I really, really adored him. It's one of those relationships that you don't want to talk about. Because you know how when you go to church and they say, is there anyone you need to forgive? And every year you think about her. And then after a while, you now begin to think about, maybe she wasn't so bad after all. So it's one of the things I decided that I didn't want to talk about anymore, because it may bring out some negative emotions that I didn't want to experience anymore or feel anymore. So I attended her son's wedding, and I saw her. She's old and she's frail, and she said to me, "You don't visit me." But you know, it's okay. It's okay. So I had a group of all these siblings, my father's children, and of course my mom was, my mom was also polygamous. I don't know what they call them when they're women. So she's had 3 different husbands. So I'm the only child of my both parents. So when it suits me, I just say I'm an only child. And some other times, they are the siblings from her first marriage and siblings from her marriage after my dad as well. But it's interesting to see how I have had to work on myself to see my life as the United Colors of Benetton. To enjoy my siblings who are Oyinbos, who are married to Oyinbos. So whether it's one that's married to a Jew or the one who's married to a German, and enjoy them. And if they reach out, I reach out in response. One of them was ill some years ago, and I got a call to say he had had a stroke. And I took my time to reach out and find out how he was doing. And then I have these other ones who are my father's children, who I lived with. And I make it a point to be in touch with the one who's married his wife. We have a relationship. And the question I ask myself, why do I keep doing this, my claim is that I have a huge heart, and it's for a purpose, and so when I talk to my children, I tell them how my life is exciting because I have all these numerous siblings. So I have 7 on my mother's side, 8 on my father's side, with nieces who are half white, half African, and some who are not. And I have a stepmom who's from Togo, who's not Nigerian. So her children are half Togolese and then half Nigerian. I guess it's my own way of fixing it in my mind, but it also gives me determination that I want my marriage to work and I want my children to grow up in a stable environment. I loved my time at secondary school. I loved it. I think it's one of the highlights of my life. I had a very spiritual experience on my first day in school. A senior who was a prefect, which meant that she had her own room, called all the girls who were new, the ones she could find, and invited us to her room. And it's interesting how I say that's how people get initiated into all kinds of things. But here I was lucky. And this person was coming to introduce us to Jesus. And she took her time to share with us the gospel, and she felt she had a responsibility to do so. I was also one who had been having these spiritual experiences and been having them before I came to school, but I didn't know how to respond to it. I didn't know what to do. I went to church without my parents because my parents didn't go to church. but I used to go as a child. Walk down the street to the Ikoyi Baptist Church and attend the church. And just attend the church simply because I felt like I was being called by something to go, so I would go. That night, I committed to becoming a Christian, not just in terms of a religion, but having an intimate relationship with Jesus. And it shaped, I think it's a significant part of shaped who I've become as a person. I've had to learn how to deal with everything from a biblical and a faith-based perspective, on how to raise children, on how to get married, on how to run a business. I've always looked at it from a biblical perspective, and I think the reason why is because I've had the luxury and I had the opportunity to have that encounter. And there were other girls and boys who were having similar experiences around the school at the same time. We created a clique, and they used to call us the SU people, right? But to a large extent, that support group helped me to foster my Christian walk and my faith walk. My entire business model is around empowerment. But I was already empowering when I was in secondary school. So I get messages from Facebook where people tell me, when you were in Form 5, I was in Form 1. And this is what you taught me about faith. And this is what you taught me about walking in love. And this is what you taught me about Bible study. And so these are people who I also groom. So mentoring, even though the word mentoring didn't exist, was something that I was already doing. So I explored that. I look back today and I look at all my friends who I knew from that time, from my secondary school days, who had also had this experience, and how we've all stood by each other, reminded each other of our commitment to our faith walk, and see one person doing one exploit or the other, and admiring and also continuing to walk in that path. So secondary school was great. It was also where I learned a lot of some of my gifts. I also saw the value of friendships in secondary school. By the time we were leaving school, after we left, we kept in touch and encouraged each other in our and so today when I see young girls who say to me, oh, my friend is this, my friend is that, I didn't have that experience. I had experiences of friends who stood up for you, who encouraged you, who looked out for you. I think about my relationship with TY, for example, and I met her when I was in secondary school, and she knows that she can pick up the phone at 5 a.m. to call me. I know that I can call her anytime, and I know she will be available, and we have the same belief systems, and we believe in the same things, and so those sort of relationships I fostered from secondary school, not just in university, but secondary school. When I think about people who say, oh, secondary school was an awful experience for them, for me, it's a different story. Of course, I missed home from time to time, which was because the food wasn't good, or because you had to wake up so early in the morning, and in the days where there's harmattan, you have to fetch your water. But I'd also grown my self-confidence in such a way that I was now willing and able to face my stepmother when I did return back home. But I think it was a lovely, lovely experience for me. Going into university, friends would say they would like me to do their makeup. And that's how I started. And I was doing it without a fee. I was studying law, and so we used to have these law week and law events, night events, and girls would get properly dressed up for it. Dinner dresses and what have you. And friends said, oh, why don't you do our makeup on the day? And I said I would charge for it, and people were willing to pay. So I charged them, I think, 500 naira, some of 350. Have them come over, I do their makeup, and then they were set to go for the law dinner. That's what it was called, the law dinner. And that was where the idea for the makeup business, the possibility that people could actually pay you for the service. I got my first job to do the makeup of the Chief of Naval Staff's daughter at the TBS, and she also had just graduated from school, so it meant all her friends were just about to get married or already in serious relationships where they were going to get married. And I had this number of customers back to back to back, and that was how the business started. The idea, the business of making up for someone, especially a bride, and then being paid for it. So I bought my kits at 15,000 naira, and my first job, I got paid 15,000 naira. And when I was going home with my 15,000, I thought to myself, wow, really amazing that I bought this kit 15,000 and then I get paid 15,000 naira. So, and it was a good experience. The family was lovely. They introduced me to even more people. After a while, their mother's events, I would come and do her makeup. And that's where House of Tara started.